if that's groovy with you.
That sounds good to me. Thanks, Julia. Meeting's all yours.
Good morning. My name is Julia Rady. I am the chair of the Toronto Preservation Board. We have quorum, so I'm now calling meeting 24 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Preservation Board would like to acknowledge that the land where we are meeting is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto Preservation Board at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council. As a reminder, please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at hertpb@toronto.ca to help with motions. At this time, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of your interest. Seeing none, we can continue. May I please have a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on October 17th, 2024? I will move them. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to one new item today, which we need to vote on to introduce before we can take action. And it's PB 24.4, 38 Walmer Road, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes and demolition of buildings on a designated property, request for directions. I have submitted a letter with recommendations that the board introduce and consider this report at today's meeting. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of introducing this item, please raise your hands. And the motion carries. Thank you very much. So that item now forms part of today's agenda, and we'll proceed with the agenda review, including that new item. The first is PB 24.1. 81 Isabella Street, inclusion on the Heritage Register. There is a presentation from Heritage Planning staff available if the board would like to hear it. Would anybody like to hold this item? Held by Adam. Moving on, then we have PB 24.2, 50 Eglinton Avenue West, alterations to a designated property under Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act. There are public speakers registered on this item, so I will hold it. The next we have is PB 24.3, 2111 Yonge Street, alteration to and demolition of heritage attributes at a designated property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement, request for directions. We have a presentation on this item available. Would anybody care to hold this item? Jeff, thank you very much. Then we move along to PB 24.4, 38 Walmer Road, alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes and demolition of buildings on a designated property, request for directions. There's a presentation from Heritage Planning staff if the board would like to hear it. I think I will hold the item. Thanks, Adam. I know you do too, just because it's new and we need to be sure what we're talking about. So 3 of our 4 items today have confidential attachments. So that's fun. What we're going to do is we're going to do all of the public portions at once as we proceed through, especially on point 2, point 3, and point 4. We'll hear the public presentations. and then we'll make a move if we still deem it necessary to move into closed session. So we're only doing that once, and our clerks don't get whiplash opening and closing the meeting. Okay, so that is the plan for the day. So seeing that, we're going to move back up to PB 24.1. And we have a presentation. Would we like to hear the presentation? Yes. Lindsay, welcome. It's all yours.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So Hans, if you want to go ahead and share the presentation for Isabella, that would be great.
All right, Chair, I need a permission to share.
Perfect. So I'll get started. So good morning, everyone. My name is Lindsay Parsons, and I'm an assistant heritage planner in heritage planning with the Toronto Heritage Survey team. Although this is my first presentation, I've been working behind the scenes, writing listing reports for the last year or so, and I'm pleased to present this report today. This report recommends 81 Isabella Street for inclusion on the Heritage Register as a listed property. Next slide, please. The subject property is located on the south side of Isabella Street between Church Street and Jarvis Street in the Church Wellesley neighborhood. Staff have undertaken research and evaluation for the property at 81 Isabella Street, including entrance address 83 Isabella Street, and believe that the property has cultural heritage value or interest and meets at least one of the criteria prescribed in Ontario Regulation 906 for including a non-designated property on a municipal register under Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The property also is identified as having heritage potential through the North Downtown Young Urban Design Guidelines, and community interest in the property was expressed through a nomination for heritage evaluation in March 2022. Next slide, please. The property has design value as a representative example of an early 20th century apartment building with Edwardian classical detailing. The property is associated with architect Norman Alexander Armstrong and is an early example of Armstrong's apartment building designs in Toronto. Contextually, the property contributes to an understanding of the social and developmental history of the area north of the city core and a collection of early 20th century brick walk-up apartment buildings on Isabella Street and the surrounding Church Wellesley neighborhood. Thank you. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
So we have no speakers on this item. Do we have questions of staff? Seeing none, is there any discussion amongst ourselves? Thank you, Lindsay. Seeing none, I have a report before me with recommendations. Would anybody like to move the recommendations in the report? Thanks, Paul. All those in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you very, very much. Moving on now to PB 24.2, 50 Eglinton Street West. We have Kristen presenting on this. So as I said, we'll hear the public presentation about this. And then we have our speakers, and then we'll sort of see if we want to move into closed session, et cetera. And then we'll do all the closed at the end. So over to you, Kristen.
Thank you, through the chair. Good morning, I'm Kristen Flood, Senior Heritage Planner with the Development Review East team. And Hans, are you able to share the presentation? Thanks so much. This is a request for directions report regarding an Ontario Land Tribunal hearing related to a development application that proposes alterations to the heritage property at 50 Eglinton Avenue West. Next slide, please. The property at 50 Eglinton Avenue West is located on the northwest corner of Duplex Avenue, west of Yonge Street in the Yonge Eglinton neighborhood in the historic community of North Toronto. Next slide, please. The property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act and contains the building known historically as the Eglinton Substation, which was constructed in 1922 by the Toronto Hydroelectric System to provide power for the extension of the Electric Street Railway, the existing radial railway on Yonge Street, and the former Eglinton Car House. The property has design value as a well-crafted example of Edwardian classicism applied to a hydro substation from the interwar period that was custom designed for the Toronto hydroelectric system. Eglinton Substation exemplifies the style with its somber brick cladding, with the stone detailing on the door and window surrounds, coping and cornice, with the latter incorporating a name band reading Toronto Hydroelectric System on its principal south elevation. Next slide. The remainder of this presentation relates to the development application, and it is confidential and will be provided in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers registered on this item. The first is Nicholas Barrett.
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Welcome back, Kristen, and thanks for the presentation and your work on this file. I'm simply here to say thank you, and if there's anything that we need to discuss, we're on hand. Okay.
Thank you very much. And then we have Kevin McEwen. I apologize if I've mispronounced your last name. Are you here?
If Kevin isn't here, we can probably move ahead into the private session.
Yeah, I don't see him here, so that's fine. Do we have any questions of our speaker in the public forum? Seeing none, does my board, do we have any questions of staff on the public bits? Do we want to move into closed session on this item? Do we need to discuss that? Yes. Okay. So we're going to table this item and we'll come back to it. Thank you very much. Moving next to PB 24.32111 Yonge Street. And we have Erin with us for the public presentation. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'll just wait for Hans to bring up the public portion of my presentation. Great, thank you. Good morning. My name is Erin Smith, and I'm presenting item PB 24.3. This is a request for directions report regarding an Ontario Land Tribunal hearing related to a development application that proposes alterations to and demolition of heritage attributes at 2111 Yonge Street, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement. Next slide, please. This slide shows the subject property at 2111 Yonge Street, located at the southeast corner of Yonge Street and Hillsdale Avenue East, highlighted here in red. Next slide, please. This property is individually designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. It was constructed for Charles Murphy between 1906 and 1912 to house his business, Charles Murphy and Sons Hardware. The property is a representative example of a corner mixed-use Main Street commercial property. Its unified 2-story storefront was originally designed to appear as a single story, and this is unique among the properties along this stretch of Yonge Street. The property is important in defining, maintaining, and supporting the character of the surrounding area. Its square 2-story form, brick cladding, restrained classical details, and the commercial storefront contribute to the early 20th century Main Street commercial character of Yonge Street. While the smaller punched fenestration along the Hillsdale Avenue East elevation defines the transition between the commercial character of Yonge Street and the more residential character of Hillsdale Avenue East. Next slide. The city has received a settlement offer for the redevelopment of the subject site, and so the remainder of my presentation would be within in camera.
Thank you very much, Erin. Any sort of questions right now, Erin? I'm assuming, Jeff, you held the item. You'd like to move into closed session for this one too? Yes, okay, perfect, okay. We're gonna table that one and move on to our new item of business, which is PB 24.4. Good morning, Anne.
Hi, you got the presentation, Hans? Thank you. Good morning. I am Anne Fisher, a Programme Manager with Heritage Planning. I'm here to talk to you about a proposed development at 38 Walmer Road. This is seeking permission to alter a designated heritage property to demolish heritage attributes of the designated property, to demolish heritage buildings on the designated property, and for permission to enter into a heritage easement agreement for the heritage property at 38 Walmer Road. The proposed development and heritage permit applications have been appealed to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. The proposal before you today is therefore an offer of settlement for these appeals, and as such, part of this presentation will be in camera. Next slide, please. This is the location plan. It shows the application site, which is situated on the west side of Walmer Road at its intersection with Lowther Road. The red arrow points to the site. Next slide, please. 38 Walmer Road is highlighted here in the pink dash line on this slide. The site includes 3 interconnected buildings. The sanctuary, shown here in yellow, that was built in 1892. The memorial building, shown in orange, that was built in 1913. And the Sunday school building, which is shown in pink, that was built in 1889. Next slide, please. So this is photographs of the subject property. The top 2 photographs show the front and sides of the sanctuary building. This was built in a Romanesque style with Gothic style references, and it was designed by the architects Langley and Burke. It is in a poor condition with the plaster ceiling on the interior falling down, so it is no longer in use. On the bottom left is a Sunday school building. This was the first original sanctuary for the Baptist Church, and it was designed in the Queen Anne Revival style, and it was later adapted for use as a Sunday school. This also was designed by Langley and Burke. And on the bottom right is the Memorial Building, which was designed in the Gothic Revival style. The property is also valued for its long association with the Walmer Baptist Road, and is noted as a landmark in the annex neighbourhood. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, the heritage permit and related development applications for this property are subject to an appeal by the Ontario Lands Tribunal. So the rest of this presentation will be in camera. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Are there any questions of hers on that public portion at the moment? Seeing none, I will hear that one in closed session as well. So we have 3 items that we're going to hear, and we'll do them sequentially. And we'll hear the confidential portions. We'll move into closed session in a second, and then we'll come out of, and that's when we vote. And anything we hear in confidential session, we can't, discuss what we go back into our public forum, but we will vote in the public forum. So, Tanya, do you mind? We need to meet in closed session, so I'm going to move the motion to go into closed session and ask the clerk to display, and I will read the motion aloud.
Certainly, Julia, give us one moment to get that ready.
Of course. That the Toronto Preservation Board meet in closed session to receive advice that is subject litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality of the local board and pertaining to the items PB 24.2, PB 24.3, and PB 24.4. All those in favor of meeting in closed session? Adam, I'm assuming your hand's up? Thank you. Motion carries. I'll leave it to you, clerks, to close things up.
Thanks, Julia. Just give us a few minutes to make sure we do what we need to do, and I'll advise you when we're ready to begin discussions and closed. One moment.
Thank you. To my fellow members, I was saying just before we had started, but I know some have joined, we have another meeting about 3 weeks from now. But please make sure that you have set aside a goodly portion of your day. We have a number of items. It's going to be a lengthier agenda. How fast it takes us to go through it, we'll sort of see in the day, but I wanted to give you a heads up in terms of your own time management and planning.
Madam Chair, could you clarify the date of that meeting?
That's a great question. I think it's the 27th,
28th.
28th of November.
Hi, Julia. We're ready to proceed into open session again.
Thank you very much. So we have PB 24.2. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before me. Does anybody care to move the recommendations in that report? I will. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. PB 24.3, 2111 Young Street. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, I have a staff report with recommendations before me. Does anybody wish to move the recommendations in the report? Jeff, thank you very much. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And then finally, PB 24.4, we have a staff report with recommendations before us. Does anybody care to move the recommendations within that report? I'll do so. Thank you. And then all those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you very much. That concludes our business for the day. As I said, for November the 28th, it is a lengthier agenda. If an item is without controversy, we'll have that opportunity to pass it at the agenda stage, but there'll be presentations available for all of us. As it gets longer, I will make sure that there is time to refuel and eat and take a breather through it for both us and staff and clerks. And otherwise, I wish you the rest of a lovely, sunny, but cooler Thursday. The meeting is adjourned.
Take care.